We turn back the clock to Bewitched, the classic TV series that ran from 1964 to 1972 and captivated millions with its story of magic and humor. But behind the bright lights, these beloved characters experienced profound real-life events, accidents, losses, and choices that changed their lives forever. Looking back in 2025, we not only rediscover their journeys, but also understand the triumphs and heartbreaks that Hollywood has carved into them. It's a story of quiet triumphs, untold tragedies, and unforgettable charm. And the charm of Elizabeth Montgomery, the charming Samantha with the mischievous eyes, and also the tricky Serena, was only 31 years old when Bewitched began airing. With her classic beauty and natural talent for comedy, she quickly became an irreplaceable television icon. But behind that halo was a stormy life. Elizabeth was married 4 times, in which the longest marriage was to actor Robert Foxworth, who, despite being with her for many years, could not bring her lasting happiness. She had 3 children, William, Robert, and Rebecca, but her busy career schedule often kept her away from them. Born into a famous family, the daughter of actor Robert Montgomery, Elizabeth grew up in a strict education, lacking a warm embrace. That left her with deep wounds, along with a feeling of insecurity that haunted her for the rest of her life. After Bewitched ended, Elizabeth tried to break away from the Samantha image with dramatic roles full of inner thoughts, but the halo of the old show was too great for her to ever reach the same heights again. In 1995, Elizabeth Montgomery was diagnosed with rectal cancer and passed away just a few months later, on May 18th, at the age of 62. Her final days were filled with anxiety and regret for missed opportunities to love fully and live in peace. Her fortune is estimated at around $20 million, most of which she left to her children, as a final legacy from the woman who once brought miracles to the small screen. Agnes Moorehead, who played the witty and witty witch Endora in Bewitched, was 63 when the show began. With her powerful voice and captivating charisma, she quickly became an irreplaceable icon on the small screen. Despite her great career success, her personal life was filled with loneliness. Agnes married twice, but neither marriage lasted, and she had no children, a regret she carried with her for the rest of her life. A devout Catholic, she devoted herself to her art to fill the emotional void. After her marriage to actor John Griffith Lee fell apart, she fell into a long-term depression. More sadly, she was one of the cast members of the film The Conqueror, 1956, which is believed to have exposed her to radioactive dust that later caused cancer in many people. Agnes died of uterine cancer on April 30, 1974, at the age of 73. Her final years were filled with illness and isolation, but she left behind a legacy of philanthropy, donating the majority of her $1 million fortune to charity. Dick Sargent, who played Darren Stevens on Bewitched from 1969 to 1972, replacing Dick York. At 39, he was a devoted human husband, though he lived in the shadow of his predecessor. Warm and lovable on screen, Dick faced challenges off-screen that were more severe than any magic. He hid his true identity for much of his career, fearing rejection from Hollywood. It wasn't until 1991 that he courageously came out as gay, becoming an important voice for the LGBTQ+ community. Although he never married, he had a number of relationships, but he has spoken of the loneliness of living a double life for decades. After Bewitched, his career slowed, his roles dwindled, and he struggled with depression and illness. Diagnosed with prostate cancer, Dick faced death with calm and relied on close friends rather than family. He died on July 8, 1994, at the age of 64. Though never truly at peace, his legacy extends far beyond his role as Darren, as a symbol of courage and honesty. Sandra Gould took on the role of Gladys Kravitz in 1966 at the age of 48, playing the nosy neighbor who was always on the prowl to expose Samantha's magical secrets. The role brought laughter and a characteristic sarcasm, but Sandra's real life was far from happy. She married television executive Larry Burns, a marriage that lasted but was emotionally cold. When her husband died in 1975, Sandra was devastated, sinking into decades of loneliness. Throughout her career, she struggled to escape the shadow of Gladys Kravitz, often relegated to supporting roles. Despite her acting ability, she regretted not pursuing more dramatic roles when she was younger. Depression plagued her while her health gradually declined. Her final years were quiet and few people knew her. Sandra died on July 20, 1999, at the age of 82, from complications following a stroke. Childless, she left behind an estate worth about $1 million, much of which was donated to charities, a kind final gesture from a woman who had made millions laugh. David White, who played Larry Tate, Darren's charming but opportunistic boss, was 48 when Bewitched began in 1964. On screen he brought humor and wit, but his real life was one of loss and loneliness. His wife, actress Mary Welch, died tragically in 1958, leaving him to raise their only son, Jonathan. Despite his career as Larry Tate, David never remarried, and the loss of his wife always burned in his heart. Tragedy was compounded when Jonathan was killed in the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in 1988, a devastating blow from which David never fully recovered. He continued to act, but no role could surpass Larry Tate. His final years were quiet and empty, living in the memory of loved ones he had lost. David White died of a heart attack on November 27, 1990, at the age of 74. His estate, estimated at $3 million, was largely unclaimed, a sad end to a life of brilliance and unspeakable pain. Dick York, who first played Darren Stevens on Bewitched from 1964 to 1969, was only 36 when he brought the humor and youthful charm that made audiences fall in love. But behind the spotlight were painful days. A serious back injury sustained while filming They Came to Cordura, 1959, left him in chronic pain, leading to an addiction to painkillers. When his health failed, York was forced to leave the series, unemployed and financially destitute. He and his wife, Joan, lived in poverty but remained committed to their humanity. York founded a charity to help the homeless, even as he struggled to survive. A pleural emphysema later left him living in a small room, dependent on an oxygen tank and the devoted care of his wife. He died on February 20, 1992, at the age of 63, poor but full of spirit. Although he left no significant fortune, Dick York is remembered not only as a charming Darren but also as a resilient man who did not bow to adversity, a quiet symbol of Hollywood courage. Erin Murphy took on the role of Tabitha Stevens in 1966 at the age of 2, with her angelic smile and curly hair quickly becoming television's most beloved witch daughter. But the glow of her childhood soon faded, leaving her with a challenging journey into adulthood. Like many child stars, Erin struggled to escape the shadow of her early roles. Her acting career faded, leading to years of financial and emotional instability. She went through 3 tumultuous marriages. The most public was to her second husband, Eric Eden, the father of her 3 children Parker, Carson, and Dylan. This marriage collapsed amid financial stress and accusations of emotional neglect. She later married a 3rd time to Darren, had another child and found some stability, but the scars of her past left her struggling with depression. Erin has worked many jobs, from stunt woman to real estate agent, but has never regained her early luster. At 60, she lives a quiet life with occasional public appearances, with an estimated fortune of $2 million. A nostalgic icon, and a quiet testament to the price of a glorious childhood. George Tobias made an unforgettable impression as Abner Kravitz, the miserable husband who always put up with his curious, noisy wife in Bewitched. When the film was released in 1964, he was 63 years old. The role of Abner, frustrated but genuine, brought gentle laughter and a touch of emotional humanity amid the magical tricks. However, behind the screen, Tobias' life was not as humorous as his role. George Tobias never married. He lived quietly and alone, finding companionship only in close friends in the industry and his loyal dogs. Despite a stable career with many impressive supporting roles, he carried with him a lifelong regret for not having a real home. In the late 1970s, he suffered a serious heart attack, signaling a series of days of declining health. He died on February 27, 1980, at the age of 78 from bladder cancer. In his later years, he largely disappeared from public view, spending his time reminiscing about his golden days on Broadway and Hollywood. His estate, worth an estimated $1.5 million, was largely donated to charities, reflecting the quiet but profound spirit of a man who lived his life to the fullest in the arts.